Hello and welcome to this first lecture in this new section on system design in this course on Master in Solution Architect. So the purpose of this section is to help you learn how to design a high level system to become a solution architect. And in this particular lecture, we will start talking about how to develop this high level system architecture and design. How? By defining components, module interfaces, and data flows, right? So, as we defined earlier, system design requires basically to do two things. One is to develop high-level system architecture and design by defining components, module interfaces, and data flows, which we will talk about in this lecture. And in subsequent lectures, we will talk about ensuring that the solution aligns with the organization's overall architecture and strategic goal. So question is, how would you go about developing this high level system architecture and design? And so how would you go about doing that? See, developing this high level system architecture involves systematically defining the components, module interfaces, and data flows, which will shape the structure of the system. So four things: components, modules, interfaces, and data flows. That shapes the system, and that's what we need to define. Now, how can we do that? Let's take a look at step-by-step guide to go through this process. So first thing, as we had said in the last section, was to understand the requirements, and that you begin by thoroughly understanding the functional and non-functional requirements of the system. What are the things that the system should produce, as well as non-functional requirements. And to do that, you engage with the stakeholders, including business leaders and end users, and basically gather detailed insights into their needs. And how to do that, we have covered in a significant detail in the last section. You can go back and refer to recap anything that you need to do. So that's the beginning. Then you need to identify the key components. Identify the key components of the system based on the requirements of the customers and the organization, and break the system down into logical units that you see as functionality 1, functionality 2, etc., etc. This will represent the distinct functionalities of the system, and these become the components. So the components you first break down into key components, which are basically the distinct functionalities that the system should perform. Then you define, having defined the components, then you define the modules within the components. For each component, define modules or subcomponents that encapsulate specific feature or responsibility of the work, the functionalities that should happen. And ensure that each module has a well-defined and self-contained purpose, right? So that's how you further break down. So you're going from top level to breaking down the work into till the module levels. Then you identify the flow of data between different components and modules as you see illustrated here. And you create data flow diagrams to illustrate how data moves through the system, indicating inputs, processes, and outputs. So it's a flow chart of how your system will work, how the data will flow across the different components and functionalities, and what will be the output. Then you define the interfaces between the components and modules, and you specify the methods of communication, data formats, and protocols for seamless interaction. So you get into interface designing here. Identify dependencies between components and modules as you see here illustrated again. Understand which components rely on others for functionality or data. So if there is an output of another component that is required for your this particular component to produce the output, then you need to connect those things as well as the data. In doing this, please consider the direction of dependencies and minimize tight coupling. So what is this tight coupling and how can we minimize tight coupling? So the tight coupling is basically about where your components have more interdependency. They are dependent on each other. You need more coordination, and there's more information flow. And to minimize tight coupling, it's to reduce interdependency, coordination, and information flow, and that will make it loose coupling. Then we will cover this in the next section as well, but a quick summary of what you need to do is to choose appropriate technology, frameworks, and platforms for each component and module. For each component module, what are the right technology, frameworks, and modules that you need? You need to choose. And in doing that, you need to consider factors such as scalability, maintainability, and compatibility with the existing system, because your application that you are developing, your solution that you're developing will work with the remaining system, existing system, right? So you need to have compatibility as well. Design the system architecture with scalability in mind. Consider how the system can handle increased load and data volume as the user base grows. So there you will need to understand your current and future needs. Cloud computing is a good strategy for the scalability. Then you also can utilize virtualization, and then you implement as a distributed architecture is another way, automating your infrastructure, monitoring and optimizing performance, and learning from successful case. These are the key consideration for scalability. Integrate security measures into the architecture. Define how well the system will handle three things: authentication, authorization, data encryption, and protection against the common security threats. So four things. So define how your system will handle these things in a design stage, in this system design stage. So having looked at how to design high-level architecture and system, and we looked at how to define components, module interfaces, and data flows, what do we do next? We have more steps that you need to follow coming up in the next lecture. Let's take a look at that again. So thank you so much for watching this system design first lecture in this course, Master in Solution Architecture. I hope you continue to learn new things, continue to enjoy. I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions that I can answer for you, and also download the PDF file in the resources as you see on the right of your screen, where you can see this file and you can refer back to some of the things that we have talked about.